Once again, good evening, everyone. Um, we're all welcome to the week 11 session of our clinical trial um, training. By week 11, it means we have one more week to go. So this training will be ending next week, Thursday, at least the sessions that we have. Um, so once again, I welcome everyone. We are going to start within the next 2 minutes. We are going to be having two presentations today. The first one is a recorded presentation, and then the second one will be a live synchronous presentation. So just 2 minutes for those who are just coming in to quickly fill the attendance, and we'll start.
We want to specially welcome uh, Professor Ilyasu, who is our immediate past chair of NHREC. We are highly honored to have you here with us. You're very welcome, Prof.
You're welcome, sir. Please, can the admin team get ready the presentation, the first presentation? It's not in slide view. This admin, can you make it slide view? Okay. Okay, so this first presentation, why the admin is setting it up. This first presentation is made by Trong Pham, who is a senior oncology investigational services pharmacist at the University of California Health, UCH, in the US. Just to mention that due to time differences, he's unable to do a live synchronous presentation, so he recorded this for us to play. But just to note as well that any questions that we have regarding this presentation, he will be available to answer them, and those questions with the answers would be shared at the next presentation next week. Before we commence next week's presentation, we would put up the questions and the answers that he used to address the questions. So please, admin, can we start off the presentation? Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Trung Pham. I'm currently a senior oncology investigational drug service pharmacist at University of California Health. It's my pleasure today to share with you more about our workflow for investigational drug service at our site. Before we start to discuss about our investigational drug service workflow, I would like to provide a few abbreviations that you might see in the next few slides. The first one would be IDS, which is short for Investigational Drug Services. We usually call investigational product as IP, and then CRC will stand for our Internal Clinical Research Coordinator, who will help the doctor to help screen patients and also to coordinate the schedule for our patients. And then the CRA, which is the Clinical Research Associate, these are the external monitor that will help to monitor each of the clinical trials at our site. And then MV would stand for monitoring visits. COV would be closeout visits. And we referring to all the pharmaceutical company that sponsor the clinical trial as sponsors. CSTD will be stand for closed system transferring device. And then DARF will be our drug accountability record form. And then also IRT would stand for interactive response technology. A brief overview about our current research portfolio at UCI Health. Currently, we have two main hospital and cancer center complexes at Orange and Irvine. We also have a few satellite infusion center, which would be at our Yorba Linda, Laguna Hills, and Newport. Our combined clinical trials across all our sites together would be about 800 trials, in which Orange would have around 650 trials for both oncology and non-oncology. Our Irvine complex is one of the newest sites, and currently we have around a little bit more than 100 oncology trials at Irvine. We are in the process to expand our oncology and probably non-oncology trials for this new location when our new hospital is up and running this December. For our current EMR system, we're using Epic mainly for dosing and documentations, and also for the study medication preparation information. Vesigo will be another EMR that we're using to house our virtual inventory for our investigational products. All information for our IP shipments and dispensing will be documented in Vesigo. For the investigational products portfolio, currently we have a variety of IP type that we do dispense daily. It can range from chemotherapies, immunotherapies, to some of the newer classes, just like gene therapies and viral vectors. For nuclear and stem cell agent, these are not handled by pharmacy, but usually will be handled by either our nuclear medicine team or our stem cell lab. I would like to share some of the roles that our IDS pharmacists usually would handle on a daily basis. We are actually involved in a variety of duties for each of the clinical trials. So we can be involved in startup of the trials, the active phase of the trials, and then also to help with closing phase of the trials. So during the startup, we would work on review feasibility and also potential pharmacy fees for each of the trials. And then when we move to the active phase of the trial, we are actually involved in building treatment plans and handling the drugs order. We also would be responsible for IP storage shipments, dispensing, and preparations. We also help with the patient return accountability, and we will then review our monthly expiring investigational products, our interim monitoring visit review, routine audit review, also our monthly billing reviews for each of the clinical trials. And then when the study is about to be closed, we will be involved in performing the closeout visit with the study monitor or the CRA. And then we also would review the final pharmacy invoice with the sponsor to make sure that pharmacy will get the properly paid for the whole course of the study. Now let's talk about feasibility. So what do we usually would do in terms of starting up a study? So some of our team members are actually committee of some of our clinical trial committees to review a new trial before it can be open or activated at our site. Some of the committee that we have is currently would be PRMC, which stand for Cancer Center Protocol Review and Monitoring Committee, our stem cell work group, biosafety group to review all the study with biohazardous products. Usually would be like gene therapy, nuclear agents, or stem cells. And then we have our IRB committees. We are also helped to review the information for IB preparation and storage to ensure that we have the proper infusion, let's say tubings or bags that will match the requirements outlined in the protocol and in the pharmacy manual. For example, certain medication might require maybe like a non-BVC or a non-DHB infusion material. So we would also try to review if the medication might require to be infused through either a syringe pump or a typical infusion pump, which special syringe infusion line might be needed if we're using through a syringe pump. We review the storage requirement range required in the protocol and pharmacy manual to make sure that it would match with our current storage ranges. If not, then we would need to discuss further with the sponsor before activating the trial to ensure that we can properly store the study medication. We typically would share our policy with the sponsor ahead of time, usually during the startup phase, to see if any of our policy won't be approved by the sponsor, and if not, we would then request a meeting to discuss further with the sponsor to see if they might change their mind and might accept our policy. We try to limit breaking our policy to just for one or a few study to keep it consistent across all of our trials because we're handling a large volume of trials. This sometimes become a challenge when working with like larger pharmaceutical companies because they would also prefer for site to follow their policy. Now let's talk about potential pharmacy fees for clinical trials. Since we can't bill to patient insurance versus like our commercial medications. So these are some of the fees that would help to maintain our staffing and operation for an IDS pharmacy. So some of the fees that we typically would bill the sponsor for each of the trials would be our setup fees. This is like a one-time fee to reflect our work from reviewing feasibility, working on setup phase, until getting to the study to be activated at our site. And then we will have our annual maintenance. So this is an annual fee to reflect our work to maintain the study, the IP storage, handling of the study. And then we also would have our after-hours service fee. So this is chargeable only when we have to handle a study patient after our normal working hours, which would be from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Or maybe this is like on the weekend when IDS pharmacy is actually closed. We typically would charge this fee per hour of working that our pharmacist will have to help to handle a research patient after hours. And we have our dispensing fees. So the fees would be for dispensing and prepare the investigational products. So typically IVIP would have a higher fee since there might be preparation involvement versus like an oral IP where no preparation will be required. We have our COV or closeout visit fee, so they will reflect our work to monitor the final inventory, ensure all related documents, training logs are documented properly in the Sickle and Epic. And then we have our Epic treatment plan build fee. So this would reflect our work to help building the study medication orders and then to build all the treatment plans required by the study. For this fee, we typically would bill the sponsor the study arms that we have to build for the clinical trials. And amendment. So we usually would build this fee if the sponsor would release a new amendment and we have to like review and then might have to like update our current treatment plan or maybe the medication as needed. So that's when we will build for the amendment review fee. So let's talk about treatment plan build. Since the study medication are not FDA approved yet, so there will be no orders available or in our EMR database where the doctor cannot even pull out the treatment plans or the medication ordered. So in these cases, a custom build for the study medication will be needed. We will work with our IT team to create a study medication order, and we will also help to draft a treatment plan after we review the master protocol and the pharmacy manual for each of the clinical trials. This will help to reduce the workload to add the treatment plan every time that we have a patient manually, so the doctor can just pull up the general treatment plan. We generally would build bird arms that the study trial may have. So let's say if the study will have different arms, we will have to build four separate treatment plans coming out of the EMR, and depends on what arms the patient will be assigned or randomized on, our doctor can just like pull out that plans. So with these pre-built plans, the provider can easily locate like the correct treatment plan in Epic, and then our doctors can just like review and sign up the treatment plan if the patient is like eligible for the study. And then the treatment and study medication will be updated as needed when we have a new amendment that is approved for our site that I mentioned earlier. So this will help to make sure that we align correctly with our studies. So in this screenshot, I share an example of one of the study medication that we actually helped to build recently for our site. So you can see some of the information that would be included. We would include the name of the study medication. We also try to include the protocol names just in case that we might have the same medication but can be used like across different studies. So in this case, we'll be able to locate, or the doctor can add the correct studies or study medications. And then we would also include information just like the dose of the study medication. It could be like weight-based or flat dose. If it's a weight-based, we usually would have our IT to correctly configure it. So it's, for example, it could be like a weight based on kilogram, or it could be based on the BSA, which is like usually meter square. And then we will have information just like the route of the study medication. It could be intravenous, it could be subcutaneous injection. We will include information just like the admin duration, whatever the study protocol and pharmacy manual would display, so we can correctly document, or the medication will be correctly administered to the patient. We also include rate information, the volume of the bags. We also include the ingredients that will be used for compounding the study medication. For example, if it's going to be like an infusion, then we will have the diluents such as like sodium chloride or dextro as one of the components. Regarding the IB storage, these are some of our standard storage range, which we briefly discussed with the sponsor prior to activating our study at our site, just to ensure that our range will match with the requirement of the study medications. So we have our room temperature would usually range from 20 to 25 Celsius degree. Our fridge would be between 2 to 8 Celsius degree. We have a regular freezer which would range around negative 20 Celsius degree, and then we also have an deep freezer or ultra freezers which can go all the way up to like negative 80 Celsius degrees. We at our site we use a 24/7 monitor system which we call it iSensic. So the system would help to like continuously capture the temperature data, and then every month we would then upload the previous monthly temperature data to our Sickle system. And then when we have a monitoring visit, our CRA will be able to review and download these temperature data. During the monitoring visits, we will give them access to our Sickle so that they can pull these data information, and then they can review and make sure that probe storage has been kept and there's no temperatures excursion during the storage of the study medication. And then in case there might be a temperature excursion event per our policy, we will document as soon as possible and we will notify our CRA within 24 hours. We usually will try our best to resolve the issue and may temporarily move the study medication to maybe another spare storage location with a matching range if we have it available. Currently, for our fridge, we have around like three fridge with almost similar range. And then we have two of the negative 20 Celsius degree freezer. We also have two for the negative 80 Celsius degree freezer. For room temperature, we have around 3-4 location that we can move the medication around just in case we have a temperature excursion event. For investigational product shipments, usually the shipment will be shipped from the sponsor to our site. For some of the trials, IDS Pharmacy might help to procure the study medication if they are commercially available, and then we will recharge to the sponsor to get some reimbursement. This usually will be discussed during the startup phase of the study, and then will be documented on the study budget. Let's talk about the process of opening an investigational product shipments. So usually when the shipment box is arrived at our pharmacy, we will have our technician to like open the shipment box and then to locate if there will be a monitoring device, or we usually call it temp-tail. And if there is one, then our technician would try to turn it up as soon as possible, because if the device is not stopped right away, it might detect a temperature change as soon as you open the box, and it might document as a temperature excursion on the device. And when that happens, it will take a lot of time and extra work for pharmacy to document, to provide explanation, and we will have to like email the sponsor and wait for them to respond back to see if these medication can still be used or we have to like destroy them. And after we do that step, we will then have our technician take out all the investigational product from the shipment box, and then we will have our pharmacist to check on these investigational product and make sure it match with the information on the packing list. Once all of that are checked, then our pharmacist would initial the shipment, and then we'll have to relocate all the studies medication to the proper storage location as soon as possible so we don't experience a temperature excursion. And then we will then return the shipment box to the sponsor if they require. So in case they require, usually will include like a prepaid shipment label that we can just like affix outside. And the process to document the shipment to Vestigo. So after the IDS pharmacist review date and initial on the packing list, we will have our technician to enter the shipment to Vestigo. So it's very important to enter all the investigational product information correctly to Vestigo, because if it's not entered correctly during the treatment time, it will be quite hard to locate the correct kit. After the IRT system send the kit assignment to our pharmacy team, then we will have to like go through like the whole process of like investigating what might have happened during the shipment, and then we'll have to correct our Vesigo system before we can actually dispense the correct study medication. So this might cause like a lot of patient delay and potentially can create like an errors for pharmacy. So for our workflow, we usually would have a pharmacist to review the shipment after the technician already entered it to the system. So they will have to enter into our Vesigo system with like the lot numbers, the kit numbers, if these are available, and then the expiration date. And then after that, we will scan all the packing lists with the temperature data if an i-Sensix device is included. And all of these will be then scanned and uploaded to Vestigo associated with that shipment. So in case in the future we have an audit, you can always go back and double check. Then we will also try to email all the required documents back to the sponsor if it is required by that study. Now let's talk about our investigational product dispensing. We will start with verification process. So prior to the treatment date, we usually would review the clinical orders ahead of time. So we would perform a 72 hours and then 24 hours review prior to the treatment date. This will help to capture any potential issue with the order. Let's say, for example, maybe the patient schedule is a little bit too early or too late, or it might be like outside of the allowed dosing windows. In this case, we would want to make sure that the coordinator actually documented properly, or do we have an approval from the sponsor for such delay, so we won't end it up having like a study deviation. And then on the treatment date, after the patient arrive at the clinic to maybe the infusion center or maybe to the hospital, it had to be treated inpatient. We would have the order released. Usually, will be out by our infusion nurses if these are treated outpatient, or by our inpatient oncology team. And then after that, our IDS pharmacist will actually review the orders and then verify if everything looks correct. After the orders are verified, then we will move to the dispensing phase. So our CRC will actually register the patient visit on the IRT system if this is used by the sponsor, and then the IRT system will generate a kit assignment after the patient is registered, and then the coordinator will email the kit assignment to our IDS pharmacy team, and the IDS pharmacist who handling the dispensing that day would review the kit assignment and then dispense through Vestigo. We also would try to provide clarification as needed for our doctors, our nurses, and coordinators regarding the study medication if something might comes up. For investigational preparations, our IDS pharmacist usually would review the preparation steps from our study protocol and pharmacy manual. During the startup, we actually would handle these steps as well, just to ensure that it's feasible for our site to prepare this study medication. So we'll have to make sure that we have all the required infusion materials, as like the correct infusion bag or tubings, and if the closed system device are allowed to be used, or if there may be any special device that would be required during the preparation, like warmer device or maybe a vortexer. We try our best to limit extra device being introduced to our sterile hood, because this could potentially introduce contaminations. On the treatment day, we would try our best to provide clarification to our ancillary team regarding the preparation, and prior to the actual treatment day, we actually would also provide an in-service to our ancillary pharmacy teams about that study medication preparation steps. So usually we would provide in-service to it could be like our infusion pharmacy team at the cancer center if the patient will be treated outpatient, or would be our inpatient pharmacy if the patient will be admitted to the hospital. And another responsibility for IDS pharmacists in terms of IP preparation would be we have to ensure that the correct study kits are dispensed. So we usually have two pharmacists check after the study kit assignment are assigned by the IRT system, just to help to ensure that we follow the research compliance. It could be patient safety, because let's say if it's a double-blinded study and you dispense an incorrect kit, so the patient might get a placebo instead of being on an active assignment. This will help to avoid trial deviation and a lot of correction action plan as well if the wrong kits are dispensed. Patient return accountability. So this is actually only applicable to the oral investigation of products only. This is more for documenting if the patient is actually adhered to taking the oral study medication. So when the patient return the unused portion of maybe like a bottle or the blister pack to the CRC with the new cycle, the CRC will then bring these back to the IDS pharmacy, and then we will perform a two-step counting to ensure the information is correctly entered to Vestigo, and then we will then destroy that leftover study medication. And then because this information has been documented in Vestigo, the CRA will be able to review this information during their routine remote monitoring visit, and then they can compare with maybe like the Pew Diary to ensure adherence of the patient. For investigational product expiring review, our Vesigo system actually will help to monitor the upcoming expiring investigational product, and on daily basis, our technicians will actually help to review this information. If they notice that any medication will expire in like the next month, they will email the sponsor or the CRA what will be the next step, or how would they want us to proceed with the expiring investigational product. So we usually ask them if we can destroy it on site per our policy, or if they would like us to return these investigational product medication back to them. So if they prefer us to send back the expired medication, we'll require them to provide us with like a prepaid shipment label, and then we'll have to clarify if it's okay for us to ship these medication back at room temperature, because we don't have a temperature control shipping materials, or we don't have like a spare temperature monitoring device. We would then also try to follow up with the sponsor or the CRA if we haven't received any response when it get a little bit closer to the actual expiration date, just so we don't have like expired medication hanging around in our pharmacy. And once we get a response from the CRA or the sponsor, we would usually save these response just for like future reference, and we would upload it to our Vesigo just for audit purpose. And then we will proceed with whatever they let us know. So if they approve us to destroy with it, we will then destroy the study medication after the actual expiration date, and then these will be documented on Vesigo as well. So the interim monitoring visits usually will be initiated by the CRA or the monitor. It will be different among all the trials. So some trials, the monitor might have to like handle the monitoring visit more frequently, and some you might not see it maybe like every quarters of the year. So for our policy, we usually ask the monitor to email us the request, and then we will then provide them with Vesigo access, so they can review all the dispensing information or any pharmacy related documents such as like training logs or note to file. For our process, if the study is double blinded where pharmacy is unblinded, we usually try our best to confirm with the monitor first if they are actually an unblinded monitor, because we don't want to share any unblinded information with the blinded staff. And prior to the actual monitoring visit, we would perform cycle count of all investigational product to ensure that the physical inventory would match with our Vesigo inventory, so we won't get questions from like the monitor. And we also will try to ensure that all pharmacy related documents are uploaded to Vestigo prior to the actual monitoring visit date, such as like training logs, our monthly temperature logs from the previous month, any expiring or expired IP destruction or return approval that we got from the sponsor. And then, of course, all the study protocol and pharmacy manual versions should be uploaded as well. So audit review is also one of our responsibility when we get a notification that we will have an upcoming audit from our compliance team. So we would help to review our drug accountability record form. So we would review all the past dispense and the kit assignment to ensure that the correct kits were dispensed to the patients. If we notice any discrepancies, we would do a quick investigation to understand what might happen in the past and see if we will have to do any correction prior to the audit. In case a wrong kit were actually dispensed and a correction is needed to be made, we will ensure that all the communication with the sponsor regarding that change is documented and saved or upload it to Vestigo so the auditor can review it after. We would also help to review all the pharmacy-related documents to make sure that they are all uploaded to Vestigo, such as like all the pharmacy protocol or the pharmacy manual versions, and make sure that these have been reviewed and we have appropriate training logs. We will ensure that all the monthly temperature logs have been uploaded to Vestigo so the auditor can actually review them and make sure there's no temperature excursion. If there wasn't a temperature excursion happen in the past, then we would have to make sure that we would have a documentation and upload it to Vestigo. We would also ensure that all the staff that involved with the study in terms of like dispensing preparation have signed the training logs to maintain the study compliance, and these should be uploaded to Vestigo as well. Billing review is a very crucial duties for our IDS pharmacy to ensure that we are properly paid for each of the study at our site, because it will help with like staff expansion as our number of trials are growing. We ensure that there's no duplication of fees that are charged, and if we actually notice any, we will try our best to reverse the charge so the research team or the sponsor won't be double charged. And we also review to see if we might have missed any fees. If we do, then we will add the proper fee into the monthly invoice before sending it out to our research revenue team. We look at things like if there might be any unblinded information that somehow got generated in our monthly billing spreadsheet. So we have to make sure that we remove this out before we send the invoice to our research revenue team, because they are considered as blighted. And if there is any clarification is needed, then our team will try our best to provide clarification to the research revenue team, such as things like if an amendment fee is warranted, or if they spot a potential duplicated fees from the spreadsheet, or sometimes they want to confirm if IDS pharmacy actually purchased certain medication for the study, and if the sponsor will have to reimburse or require something like the invoices as a proof of purchasing. For the closeout visits process, so usually when a study is about to be closed, the research regulatory team will actually notify IDS pharmacies about the potential closing of that study, and if we currently have no active patient on that trial, we will typically reach out to the sponsor and ask if we can actually close the study profile on the pharmacy end. Technically, it's just to close the study portfolio on our Vestigo system. So if the sponsor actually approved for pharmacy to perform our closeout visit, we will then check if we have any unused investigational products on the study through our Vestigo, and if we do, then we would clarify with the sponsor if we can destroy these on site, or if they would like us to ship them back to the sponsor. We would then create our final invoices and ensure all the proper fees are added to this invoice before we send it out to our research revenue team to review and obtain all the needed fees from the sponsor to reimburse for our pharmacy. So we will also have the COV or closeout visit fee that we discussed briefly earlier will be included in this final invoice. For the final invoice review, this is going to be quite similar to our monthly invoice review. Our IDS pharmacists will review the final invoice to ensure all the proper fees have been added and to make sure that we don't have a duplicated fees on the invoice before we send it out to the research revenue team. We would provide all the clarification as needed, like proof of purchasing if it is requested by the sponsor, or if maybe we have like amendment fees, sometimes treatment plan fees. Since we built the study bird arms, sometimes the sponsor might question stuff like how come we only have patient for certain arms but we would charge for all arms. So we typically would respond as we would not know what arms that we might have patient when the study started at our site. So typically we would build for all arms that are actively open for enrollment, and we'll charge the fee for like all these arms since our site will have to put a lot of effort to build these treatment plans. The randomization process are typically handled by our research coordinators, and the general process would be for protocols with IRT system. The patient information will be entered to the IRT system by the coordinator, and then the system will perform the randomization, and then the coordinator will obtain the randomization from the IRT system, then forward the information to IDS pharmacy. Our IDS pharmacy, in some cases for double-blind study, we may receive a separate unblinded automatic notification via emails. So this will just send it to us as unblinded staff and not to the CRC because they will be considered as blinded staff. For protocols without IRT system, the CRC will also obtain the randomization information from the sponsor and forward that information to IDS pharmacy for documentation. In some cases, the study team might have an unblinded staff that will handle the randomization process for the patient and will inform the pharmacy directly about the assignment of the treatment. Um, if the research team doesn't have an unblinded team member, then in this case, IDS Pharmacy will help to perform the randomization of the patient after the patient is deemed eligible for the study. And all the unblinded information will be documented in Sickle, hence why earlier I mentioned it is very important to always clarify with the external monitor or CRA if he or she is an unblinded monitor when they request for Sickle access if the study actually double blinded and pharmacy is the only unblinded team members. For unblinding, typically our provider or research coordinator will contact IDS for the request. And then our IDS pharmacy team will then contact the sponsor to ensure all the proper paperwork is filled and documented. And then once we have the approval by the sponsor that we can unblind the patient, we will then share the treatment assignment information with our doctors and coordinators. All the communication will be saved and uploaded to Vestigo for future audit purpose. For labeling, currently we're using Epic labels for all the investigational products that will be given on site. It could be like at the infusion centers, or it could be like inpatient if the patient will be admitted to the hospital. So because the order were generated by Epic system, so after it's being verified, an Epic label will be provided, and then the Epic label will be affixed onto the final investigational product, and then our nursing team will use this Epic label. They will scan it to ensure that the correct medication will be given to the correct patients. For our take-home oral investigational products, we currently using a Vestigo labels. We don't have the Epic label affixed to the product yet, but we are in the process to transition to a new system where the take-home order medication will actually be can be verified by our pharmacists in the Epic system, and then an Epic label will be provided. For some label requirement, right now we just include all the information that are required by FDA, which is like the proper investigational drug name and protocol. We include all of the administration information. We also include the caution that these drugs are limited by FDA to be used for investigational purpose only. And then we would also include our pharmacy information just in case that the patient might need to contact pharmacies for some questions. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening to the presentation, and please don't hesitate to email me for any questions that you may have.
Hello, everyone. So like I mentioned earlier at the start, this is not a synchronous presentation. So the questions that we have are going to be sent to Strong so that he can respond to them, and we will publish them before the commencement of next week's presentation, which is going to be the last week. I've already picked out a couple of questions from Kelvin from the chat, and I've documented them, I've collated them, and just to let you know that the answers will be provided to those questions during next week's session. I know Strong is not here, but Kathy is here, Kathy Greff is here, and we want to thank her, and also for her to pass on our thanks to Trunk, Kathy Greff. Some of us remember her from the inaugural session from BVGH, BioVentures for Global Health. They are partners in this clinical trial training. So Kathy, thank you so much for mobilizing the various resource persons that have been part and parcel of this training thus far, and extend our thanks to Trong for his presentation. We'll move on now to our next presentation. We're going to be listening to someone that a number of us already know because he was part of the inaugural session. He's also had lectures with us in some previous weeks. We're going to be listening to Dr. Beno Yakubu, who is a deputy director from NAFDAC. Beno is like the key person, I would say, when it comes to clinical trial monitoring and all that from the NAFDAC end. He will be talking to us on management and accountability of investigational products. Please, can the admin put up the slides so that Dr. Beno can start his presentation? Dr. Beno, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Again, I'm happy to be here once again. And just like he made announce, my name is Dr. Beno N. Yakubu, and I work for NAFDAC. Again, I've made some presentation here before, and today I want to make a presentation on management and accountability of investigational medicinal products. Again, this is just part of what we do when we go for GC, good clinical practice inspections as part of the oversight function of NAFDAC. Again, for every life cycle of a clinical trials, we should and we do go to inspect the study to make sure that the study is being implemented in accordance with the approved protocol, as well as making sure that the well-being of the trial participant is good, and also to make sure that it's being run in accordance with our regulatory requirements. So again, drug accountability and management is part of the GCP inspections. Next slide, please. So the overview of this presentation involves introduction, IP management. We talk about how it's being received, stored, dispensed, and the real accountability, as well as how the leftover or the on. Then the conclusion. Next slide. Introduction. Investigational product is a product containing an active ingredient being tested. Again, it could be one that contains active ingredient being tested. It could be a placebo, which does not contain anything, but again, must look like the active product being tested. It's used as a reference in the clinical trials. It includes products with marketing authorization. Again, for those who want to use the product for a repurposed studies, the product should be have marketing authorization. Then, and these products are used or assembled in a way different from their approved form, because we do have a guidelines that states this is the way the product should look like in form of the labeling. Then, it is used for an unapproved indication. Many of the studies, for instance, those who are being developed, products at that moment may not have an approved indication, but it's used to find out maybe to answer a question. Then it's used to gain further information about an approved use. This is found in ICH R2 1 section 1.33. Next slide. Then these products involve the management involve procurement, receipt, storage, dispensing, documentation, and return and use or destruction of the product. Next slide. So the guidelines I want to make reference to is the NAFDAC guidelines for importation of investigational medicinal products. It's found on this website. The NAFDAC guidelines for labeling of IP. If you go through this, you understand the requirements that NAFDAC needs that have for those who want to import investigational medicinal product. Remember that not every study imports its IP. There are some IPs that can be found here, but they must meet those requirements as stated in the guidelines. So the local requirements is there for everybody who wants to conduct clinical trials for IP management. Next slide. So again, this presentation is just to prepare the site, particularly maybe the PI who is the sole responsible of the site. So the PI should know that what we are presenting today should be there when you are conducting the clinical trials. And these are the things that when regulators or monitors come around, they want to see at the site. Again, the PI should establish an SOP. Again, you could have the pharmacy manual, which contains almost everything at the site. So IP SOP for IP is very key when you are establishing a site. Then the IP should be kept by a designated person. Again, we always insist that a pharmacist who knows much about drug products should be included in any clinical trial, because he has the license to manage drugs. So we advocate that every clinical trial should have a pharmacist on board. And this person should maintain records of the delivery process and who should ensure that the product is processed and stored correctly. Next slide. If you ensure presence of essential documents related to the study drug. This should cover the up-to-date investigation brochure, because the pharmacology of the product it's already on the IB, which again the pharmacists know much about it, or you could have somebody of the SMPC of the marketed product if product is already marketed. Then the labeling of the IP should be correct in accordance with the stipulated guidelines. You should have the control over the IP. Then the SOP for receipt and handling, storage, dispensing, return of unused products, and destruction of the products should be in place. Again, if these things are in place, those are the things that when regulators come, they want to see them for inspection. Next slide. So again, the PI should make sure that all the shipping and delivery records are there. And these should include the dates of the shipment, the delivery, the quantities or doses of the products that are imported, the condition of the product upon receipt, that is, including temperature readings. Just like the last presenter stated, there must be temperature monitoring device which should be added into the shipment. Again, sometimes depending on the condition of the product or the storage condition of the product, regulators will ask to let them see the temperature monitoring device, and you can dock it on the computer system and see the readings. Again, what we try to see is to make sure that there's no, at any time, temperature excursion, because we know if the product is not stored properly, it may affect the outcome of the study. So all those things, the PI must make sure they're there when receiving those products. Making sure that also the batch and load numbers of the products are adequately stated, because at the time of reconciliation, we want to see which of the batches did you import and which of the batch did you use. Then make sure that the expiry manufacturing dates of the products are there and should be within the range. Otherwise, if it's expired, that is a no-go area. There should be unique code numbers assigned to the product and the trial subjects. Again, for those who particularly randomize studies, you must have those unique codes that are there that will match the patient's the randomization code that you already generated during this study. Then discrepancies on these should be recorded and reported. Again, if it happens, it should be recorded so that when regulators come, you report it, or sometimes if they don't even come, you report it back to them so that there will be know-how that this is what has happened during the course of shipment. Then some of the documents that cover importation include copy of the importation application letter that you apply to the regulator, then the approval letter issued to you, then there must be certificate of analysis of that particular product IP that you brought in, or load release certificate of the imported product. Then cover of the letter of clearance by NAFDAC at the seaport. This is very key so that we know that this product followed the proper channel when you brought them in. And if the product is manufactured within, we want to see your purchase receipt from the company that you bought the product for use. Want to know the batch you bought or the lot number of this particular product that you bought from the company and the statistical analysis as well. So you need to know the up-to-date inventory of the IP. That is, make sure the stock management is adequate. Next slide. So we do check too. Okay, we've seen this slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. So during storage, some of the things that you must make sure they're adequate. Make sure that the product is highly secured wherever you're storing them. There won't be any interference, maybe by rodents or any other thing that will tamper with the integrity of the product. There must be access control, which is very key. And we should avoid mix-up of the product with other IPs. Again, as some instances we've seen where by products were kept in the single container cabinet or same fridge, and again, you could see potential mix-up of these products. So we encourage that PI or the pharmacy should make sure product is kept separately. Storage conditions should be adequately monitored and in accordance with the IB or SMPC. That is, if they say stored at 25 degrees, not more than 25 degrees centigrade, it should be there. And there must be evidence that is being maintained. That is why we do advocate that there must be temperature monitoring device always at the pharmacy. Again, we encourage too, during in the pharmacy, they should do what they call temperature mapping, whereby you'll be able to know which location is hotter, which location is cooler, so that you know which type of products you keep at which location in the pharmacy. So most of the times, PIs or pharmacies don't do this. And again, sometimes you see the excursion happen, which was not supposed to be.
Taking light.
Then you making sure that the cold chain is maintained if it's a cold chain thermoletter product. Next slide. Then drug dispensation. Dispensing should be as per approved protocol. Again, for every protocol, they will tell you the dispensing condition. From there, be able to calculate how much sample were dispensed or are still there. Records should be clearly indicated used by individual study patient, when and how many. Again, that will really help you when you are doing accountability of your IPs. IP should never be dispensed to patients outside the study. Again, we've had instances whereby at the end of the study, the PI felt that because the product was highly needed by people outside the study, and it was issued out. Again, during the accountability, he couldn't account for the product, and again, he had no option than to reveal that he had given it out to some people without any permission, either from the sponsor or from regulators. Again, that could cause an issue. Next slide. So, records on return on use or IP destruction. You must adhere to sponsor's instruction. Again, some sponsors insist that after the study, the unused product should be returned back to the sponsor. Again, some will direct that the product should be destroyed at the site. So either way, you must adhere to the sponsor's instructions. Ensure the documentation for basis of return, unused or destruction per subject information is key. Again, at this instance, we've seen instances whereby sites decide to destroy the IPs without sponsors' instruction, without the knowledge of the regulators. At the point of the inspection, when we try to do accountability, it was stated, but without any record. So again, that gave suspicion whether the product was really accounted for or was really destroyed, because there wasn't any record, there wasn't any letter of application for destruction to the agency. They just verbally reported that the product has been destroyed. So, and there's need to adhere to applicable regulatory requirement. That is, prior approval from NAFDA before destruction should be sought. If you want to destroy it in accordance with the instruction of the sponsor, then at that instance, adequate stock taking and accountability before destruction should be met, so that you have records that you can show. Involvement of other relevant stakeholders too should be documented. Some people might not have the capability of destroying the products. They may decide to involve maybe environmental management agency to help them destroy this. So all those must be clearly stated and must be adhered to. So obtaining NAFDAC export license before exportation of the unused product is highly required. If the sponsor insists that you send the unused IP back, you must obtain NAFDAC license for export, which NAFDAC is always open to issue it out to any PI who want to export the product out. And issuance of NAFDAC certificate of destruction is always a key. If you destroy with NAFDAC involvement, NAFDAC will issue a certificate of destruction. Sometimes, if you feel you can't destroy, you can approach the agency, apply it, and you pay. And NAFDAC will gather this product on its store, in its storehouse, then ready for destruction. When there's going to be quarterly destruction by the agency, they take it there and destroy it. Next slide. So for the constellation of these unused products, the site ensure that appropriate blocks that will allow accounting for every single unit of the product received are available. For every single unit, if it means a tablet, it should be. We did an accountability at the site, and we discovered out of 35,000 tablets, 10 tablets were unaccounted for. Again, that was an infringement. So we're still waiting for the explanation from the site where the 10 tablets went missing, how it got missing. So it's very crucial that products should be very well accounted for, particularly because for a product that hasn't obtained any prior approval for use for that particular indication, it's still under investigation. So we don't want to see where products will be used without any reason for usage. So every product, every unit of the product must be accounted for. Log should ensure consistency and accuracy of information from shipment to use, return, and destruction. So from shipment, we will trace the quantity shipped in, the quantity dispensed, the quantity used, and the quantity that is unused, whether expired or is left over after the study. So that is the reason why we still encourage sites that you follow up your patients when you dispense these products. So that even when you carry it home, make sure they return back to you the empty containers, showing, try as much as possible to know whether they use it or they don't use it, and get back the container to make sure that maybe you account for it when you are as records. Next slide. So other areas that PI should make sure it monitors for compliance, you make sure that those who handle these IP products must be qualified. Again, training is key. Make sure they are duly delegated for that job. If they are duly delegated, they must be trained on how to handle the IP. Records of correct usage and compliance, e.g. source documents that the products are being used in your case report forms, they should tally with what you said you dispense. Again, if they say a participant is going to take maybe 20 tablets in the course of the study, on the CRF form, it should tally with what you've in your record of dispense, how you dispense it, so that at least that will form part of your accountability record. So real-time dosing of study subjects should be recorded as well. And making sure that all your equipment you use during the study, as regards to the investigation of medicinal products, are well calibrated and validated. So that at least that will really help you in making sure that your products are kept in accordance with the manufacturer's specification. We are talking here maybe your freezers, your temperature monitoring device, your weighing scales, your temperature, your humidity device. So make sure all of them are calibrated and validated so that it will give you adequate or correct information that will boost your final outcome. Next slide. So in summary, this is the way it flows from the manufacturing plant down to the site, down to the user. The receipt of the product by the pharmacist at the point of shipment, then the control condition of the products are observed and before the pharmacy received it. Then deliver the same thing to the site investigator. Then the site investigator during the course of the study will dispense through the pharmacy to the patient, and then you account for every particular unit of the product. Then your recovery of the unused products should be there. Then at the end of it, if there are unused or expired products, it should be returned to the sponsor or destroyed within the country in accordance with the sponsor's directives. So I think with that is a brief presentation of what we do or what we check or what the site PI should make sure is in place when you are managing your IP during clinical trials. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beno. Thank you so much. This was quite explicit. So it's time for us to take questions and answers. Dr. Beno, please, I've just I did some extraction of a few questions that were on the chat while you were presenting, and I've sent them to you. So just check your chat, you'll see them there. So maybe you can start with addressing those ones. And at the end, we'll see if there are any other questions from other people.
Okay. So I've seen one here. Okay. Does NAFDAC allow relabeling of IP, especially those about to expire? That is, the sponsor does not retest and issue the retest certificate that is used on site. Yes, you can relabel, or the site can relabel if there are adequate documentation that comes from the sponsor. Maybe you might have done your stability. There's evidence that stability study data is available that shows that the product can be used with outside that the stated timeline mentioned on the label. Again, I give example of a particular study we went in. Then we made the comparator product was already a year expired, over a year, and we raised questions. So, but the argument from the sponsor was that it was a mislabel. So we demanded for evidence that the product was still potent. So they had to submit stability data report, which again shows that the product was still potent up to that level. So they had to relabel the product. On the temperature mapping of the research pharmacy, do you follow WHO climatic zones in the exercise? Oh, yes. Again, product coming to Nigeria must come based on the climatic zones. For us in this part of the world is 45, 70, 30, 70, 30 degrees centigrade, 45 percent relative humidity. So every product coming to Nigeria must meet that climatic zone. So for you, again, if the manufacturer said that you store below or below 25 degrees centigrade, again, you know, sometimes within the pharmacy room, there could be some spots that may be hotter than that at 25 degrees centigrade. So it's to your advantage if you map out your pharmacy store and know the areas that fall within that range, or area that are maybe, of course, you know that area close to the AC will be cooler than area far away from the AC. So you know all these points, then you keep the product based on the manufacturer instruction on those areas. So I think that would be better for you too. Because for every product coming to Nigeria must have been manufactured in accordance with our climatic zone. NAFDA will not allow you to bring product that does not fall under this climatic zone. So discussion, those NAFDAC or drug regulatory officer come to participate in the actual witnessing and issue of destruction certificate of the destroyed drugs. No, if you are destroying yourself, we advise that you invite NAFDAC from the nearest location to you. If it's at Ibadan, we have NAFDAC at Ibadan. We invite them to witness it during the destruction. If it's in Lagos, we invite NAFDAC in Lagos, they'll attend it so that they'll witness what you're doing. So that is our advice. But again, if you are sure your report is okay, we still accept reports without NAFDAC being there. Does NAFDAC have regulatory requirements or restriction for the handling of psychedelic substance in clinical trial? We don't have any now. Who should fund NAFDAC? Who should fund the regulator? NAFDAC monitoring visit to clinical trial sites. How do you avoid conflict of interest if such visits are funded or supported? No, NAFDAC funds its officers for inspections. Because at the point of your payment, during application, you pay everything therein. So NAFDAC will pay its staff, inspectors to come and inspect your site.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beno.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beno. I don't see any other questions in the chat. I've collated all the ones that people had put up there. We want to really thank you for the explanations and the answers you've given us and the presentation this night. So on behalf of the Center for Excellence for Sickle Cell Research Training at the University of Abuja, and the director, Professor Nodo, I want to thank everyone who joined us for tonight. Just to mention again, we have the last session next week, and then the subsequent things will now be the post-training assessments towards the certificates issuance. So we'll give information regarding those other aspects, subsequent aspects during next week's session. Just to remind us that the past presentations are on the CESTA website. And if quickly, please, can the admin just also place the link for the past sessions, the past recordings of the past sessions in the chat box, please, so that people can also, we normally do place them. So it's still the same link. We just add up at the end of every week. So like today's presentations, by tomorrow or next, they will be uploaded onto the platform. So you can always go there to go through previous presentations. So once again, I want to thank everyone for joining in this evening. And I wish everyone a good night rest. Good night.
cause our spirits
Good
to be
night.
Good night.
Good night, sir. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.